Anyway, welcome to the second installation of Capital View Credit Union's financial lecture series that we're doing. Of course, featuring Mr. Adam Carroll, who's a great lecturer and works with the Iowa Credit Union League, and also is an author, written a book, Winning the Money Game. If you haven't read that, I encourage you to check it out. Otherwise, I'll let the expert take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. Thank you all for being here. I heard you ladies come in and say something about need to be here. This isn't a need session. Really, what I find is that when I do a session on budgeting, the people who already do a pretty good job of it are the ones that show up, and the ones who desperately need it are out to eat, spending $12 on lunch at Applebee's. So I applaud y'all for being here anyway. As Ben mentioned, my position. How are you? Come on in. My position is I have a consulting company and a seminar business called National Financial Educators, and I speak on college campuses all across the country. And out of that, I got affiliated with the Iowa Credit Union Foundation and the League. And the foundation, one of their missions is to help increase financial literacy across the state of Iowa through credit unions. And so my partnership with them allows me to go out and do these kinds of programs for credit unions like Capital View and really help impact the members and hopefully increase their financial education and literacy and wherewithal as we go along. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go for maybe 30, 40 minutes, maybe 45, Q&A, a little bit at the end if you have any questions. But I'm going to go through quite a few things. We're going to go through the savings percentages in America, where current savings of Americans are. The 4 steps on how to control your money. I'm going to go through how to rid yourself of unnecessary fees, which tend to rob people of some of their savings opportunities. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about how to plan both your saving and your spending to create more of a cushion for emergencies and things like that. So again, thank y'all for being here, and we're going to get into it. So first of all, you can see at the very top of this handout, and we'll make sure that everyone gets one. Anyone not have a handout? Just a note form, but I want some guesses here. This is the audience participation part of this. What percent of workers said they had less than $10,000 in savings?
I'd say 95.
95, okay. Any other guesses? 70? How many? 100%, yeah. Too many percent, right?
Anyone has a job?
Yeah, you're very close, actually. What percent of workers said they had less than $1,000 in savings? Anyone know? 50?
50, 60.
Okay. Well, your numbers actually are a little bit high. 43% of workers said they had less than $10,000 in savings. This is in 2010. It was up from 39% in 2009, which is somewhat indicative of the economy that we had in 2009, 2010. This is all from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, which does a survey every year. And I've not seen the 2011 survey results yet. My assumption is that it's probably gone up a little bit. The percent has gone down, the savings has gone up. Because what happened in 2010, 2011, and into 2012 is a lot of people began deleveraging, meaning they were paying down their credit card debts, they were paying off their cars, they were paying down home equity lines of credit, and they were trying to up what they had in savings, I think partially realizing that, number one, the stock market is not smart. At this point, it's very volatile. It's all based on emotion and not necessarily based on the fundamentals. So a lot of people weren't putting money there. They were putting it in safe, secure spots like their money markets and CDs and things like that, even though CDs were only paying less than 1% probably. But these are the numbers, 43% and 27%. I saw a really scary statistic out of U.S. News and World Report, and this was early in 2012, and it said that less than 25% of Americans had over $25,000 in non-retirement savings. So that means that they had it set somewhere else that wasn't earmarked for retirement, an IRA, a Roth, a 401k, something like that.
What was the amount?
Less than 25% of Americans had over $25,000 in non-retirement savings. So we survey, in surveying a lot of different individuals, and I've read a lot of different reports and Institute surveys that have come out, the number one reason for most people not budgeting their money was unforeseen expenses. They said that, things came up, medical bills, car repairs, and so on. We boiled it down. There's 4 things you have to do to get greater control of your money. It's to know how much you have coming in and how much you have going out. That's the first step. Plan, which is planning, some of those advanced expenses. Isn't it amazing that, maybe I should ask this, because I think it's amazing. Your license plate tags have to be renewed every year. Does that ever sneak up on anybody? Where you get the envelope and you go, oh, what? Has it been 12 months already and I have to pay my license plate renewal tags already again? So that sneaks up on people. This goes into plan. Track is tracking what you're spending, when you're spending it, how you're spending it. And I'm going to show you a couple of online resources as well as one that's at Capital View that will help you in tracking what you're spending. Because what's amazing is when people really start to implement some of these systems, and one as an example is called Mint.com. When some of my friends started using Mint.com, and Mint will give you a report at the end of the week or the end of the month of where you spent your money and how much you spent, they're shocked to see the percentages, because it'll give you a pie chart or it'll give you a list view. They're shocked to see the percentages they've spent on dining out or on entertainment or on clothing or what have you. So tracking it is a big part. And then lastly, growing your money. And growing tends to be a little more difficult nowadays than ever before because CD interest rates are so low. The stock market is volatile, like I said. There are bonds that might pay 3 to 5% out there. But unless you're somewhat savvy about that, it's a little difficult to grow your money. I always heard it's easier to make it than it is to keep it. It's easier to keep it than it is to grow it. Right? So most people are pretty good at making it. They may not be very good at keeping it, and they're probably really not good at growing it. So those are all the things that we're going to talk about today. Know, plan, track, and grow. So knowing, if you compare it to a business, when a business has more revenue than expenses, they're said to have a profit. Right? So ideally, a company is selling more than whatever it is they're selling costs them to make. And in that case, they then have a profit. Companies have the advantage of when they don't turn a profit, they can borrow against lines of credit. And they might, when you hear a company having a $300 million loss in a quarter, well, they borrowed against a line of credit and they're going to try and make that up moving forward. For most individuals, we don't have that luxury. In a family, when a household has more income than expenses, they should have savings. So if a family is making $50,000 a year and their expenses are $40,000 a year, ideally they should have $10,000 in savings to show for it at the end of the year. But if their expenses exceed their income, they usually have debt. And then for some people, actually their expenses don't really exceed their income, but they still have debt because they tend to buy more than what they tend to make. So there's a gentleman named Parkinson who has this thing called Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law says that your expenses will always rise to meet income. Unless you consciously prevent it from doing so, your expenses will always rise to meet income. And so if you think about maybe a time in the past where you got a raise, and all of a sudden you're getting $200 more a month in your paycheck, but all of a sudden your expenses kind of ratchet up. So maybe you take on premium channels, or maybe you take a class, or maybe you buy more clothes, or you go out to eat more. Your expenses will always rise to meet income according to Parkinson's Law. So part of this is knowing, and in knowing, what we have to do is we have to know what does your household spend on a monthly basis. And when you create your budget, and I really don't even like the word budget because it sounds too much like diet. No one likes diets. So I prefer to call these spending plans. When you create your family spending plan, the family spending plan is really broken up into 2 categories. Fixed expenses. And as you notice on the middle of the page there on page 1, it says, on a monthly basis, what does your household spend? Your fixed expenses would be any bill that never changes. So what might some of those be? Your mortgage or rent. What else is fixed, primarily? Utilities, yep, if you're on budget billing especially, which I always recommend if you're trying to create a spending plan. We overpay in the summer, and then underpay in the winter, and at the end it all balances out. We know exactly what we spend every single month in utilities. What else would be a fixed expense? Insurance. Yep, car insurance, health insurance, disability, anything that you're paying like that. Your car payment would probably be a fixed expense. Did I miss any? Any doodads or toy payments that you might be making? A ATV, an RV, motorcycle, a boat, any of those kinds of things would also be fixed expenses. But it's anything that you're paying the same every single month. In our household, we also have my daughter's gymnastics is a fixed expense every month. My son's soccer is going to be a fixed expense every month. So we begin, in our spending plan, we begin figuring out what are our fixed expenses, what do we know that we're going to have no matter what, that will always stay the same. Then we have variable expenses, and these are going to change month after month depending on your usage. I have utilities on there, but that could just as easily go up and fixed if you're doing budget billing. But cell phone, somewhat variable, depending on number of minutes you use or text messages you're sending. How much gas you're using. Some people, if your commute is the same every day and you don't tend to do much on weekends, you might know exactly what you spend in gas. For most people, it's going to be sort of a range. I'm going to spend between this and this on gasoline. Food, credit card payments, your home phone, any sort of miscellaneous expenses, which would include what in variable? A miscellaneous expense.
Entertainment going out.
Okay, entertainment going out.
Shopping.
Household necessities, trips to Target, right? What grabs your eye on the end cap that you can't live without, those kinds of things.
Gifts, or gifts, family.
You bet. Birthdays that happen up on, graduation. It's always a more expensive time for most people. So these are all great things. So you have fixed expenses, always stay the same, and variable might fluctuate month after month. The way that I encourage folks to create their spending plan is you look at your fixed expenses and you look at your variable expenses. And on variable, you're going to have an expected, what you expect to pay that month or to spend that month. And then you're actually probably going to fill that back in with an actual. So what did you actually spend in gifts, in miscellaneous going out entertainment expenses, on your credit card, those kinds of things. I'll have you write this down, and I don't have it on the sheet, but it's a website that I'm going to give you. And the website is Vertex, VERTEX, the number 4 and the number 2.com. Vertex 42 is a website I found that has Excel spreadsheets that are pre-made that cover just about any topic you can imagine. So they have a family budgeting spreadsheet that will do all the calculations for you. And they're all free to download, so it's one of those things that I like to have up. They also have a debt repayment calculator that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. The debt repayment calculator is really valuable for maximizing a rapid payoff of all your debts in the order in which they need to be paid off. So I'll talk about that here in just a sec. Any unnecessary fees in your budget that you see, and the way to determine if you have any of these is to pull two documents out and look at them side by side. One is your monthly bank statement or credit union statement, and the other is your credit card bill. And on each of those, what you're looking for is anything that says NSF, insufficient funds fee, anything that has a return check fee, anything that has a late fee or a service fee on it. And so unnecessary fees are late, overdrafts, payday lending charges, over-limit fees, credit card annual fees. In my mind, anything that I'm being charged for when ideally I could get it for free, I want to get rid of. And this is a bit, sometimes it's up for discussion on credit cards because most people have a credit card that has an annual fee. And they say, well, what do I do if I have an annual fee on my credit card? And I'll tell them usually, if you're using your card enough and paying it off to the point that you're getting free miles and enough to buy